Be me. In 2017, I worked for a property management company in New Mexico. This company handled everything from new construction to old foreclosures that the bank had repossessed. Most of the time, my job was just inspecting these places. Sometimes changing locks, sometimes photographing damage for reports. Occasionally, we would get a real mess. Squatters, hoarders, meth labs, you name it, I have probably seen it. But nothing came close to this one place in Valencia County. It was an old prefab home out on unincorporated land. No running neighbors for miles. It was just dry desert brush, a few rusted out trailers in the distance, and a whole lot of dust. It had been foreclosed on about 4 months earlier, and the bank wanted it cleared for resale. The original owner, a guy named Raymond C. or something, I think his name was, withholding his last name just in case I can get into trouble somehow. Call me a pussy if you want. This guy had not been seen since the eviction. Like, not at all. Not a single trace of this guy. When I pulled up in the driveway, I noticed the front door was wide open. It was not kicked in or anything like that. It was just hanging there on its hinges, like it had been left that way for months. I called the sheriff's office real quick, just to cover myself and let them know I would be inspecting a property with signs of entry. Really did not want any blame pinned on me or for anything weird to happen. The dispatcher did not seem too concerned at all. They sounded bored and like they could not care less really. So, I decided the only thing to do was go in and just get on with my job. The place smelled really fucking bad. Smelled like mildew and dry rot. The air was thick and warm despite it being early spring. The floor was covered in a fine layer of sand and silt. It was like the wind had slowly blown the desert in. But other than all of that, it was relatively quiet. The furniture was all still there. Couple couches, a bed, an old TV with rabbit ears. Everything seemed frozen in place, like someone had just stepped out for groceries and never came back. I started snapping photos of everything like usual, so we had a record. That is when I noticed something a little strange. Nothing groundbreaking, but I definitely picked up on it quite quickly. All of the mirrors in the house had been turned to face the wall. Like, every single one, I kid you not. In the bathroom, the mirrors in the bedroom, even a little compact mirror on a dresser was not spared. They were all flipped around. Not a massive deal, I guess. Maybe this dude was just paranoid or something, I don't know. Still a little weird though. But then I came across the garage while taking photos, and notes on the rest of the place. The garage had been converted into a little workspace. It had fluorescent lights overhead. Also, one of those industrial metal tables in the center, and the walls were absolutely covered in printed photo too. Hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. Too many to count at any rate. Every single one showed the same thing. A long, flat patch of desert. There was nothing else on them. Just dirt and sky and a slight dip in the land. Different angles and different lighting, sure, but always the same patch. The back of each photo was labeled with a date. Some went back years. In the corner was a filing cabinet full of notebooks. I opened one up at a random page, just out of curiosity. Inside of them were logs. Observations, I guess you'd call them. They were always dated. They were always about the hole. At the time reading them, I had no idea what the fuck these observations were referring to. All I knew is that is what he called it. Notes would always be like, hole is slightly wider today, 0.5 inches hit eastern lip. No sound when rocks dropped in, no echo. Magnometer registered slight fluctuation at perimeter. Dreams are worsening. One simply read, it watches back. What the fuck? I was disturbed reading this stuff. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? The last entry was dated a short while ago. About a day after he was last seen, I think. The last entry was just, going to scale down and inspect myself. At this point, it was so much more than being disturbed. I was confused, genuinely confused. There was no hole or whatever anywhere near the property that I could see. Nothing in the house either. I thought maybe he was referring to some kind of structural damage or maybe even a sinkhole, and that he just maybe was not all there in the head. I remembered that there were coordinates in the logbook though. So, I decided I would look up the coordinates mentioned in several entries. To my surprise, they led to a real place. I was expecting it to be some kind of a joke, if I'm honest. But yeah, just a flat patch of desert land about 10 miles away from the house. It was still technically on the same parcel, but it was more than far enough away that I would have no idea without the coordinates. It looked like nothing from satellite view. No building, no sinkhole, no sign of disturbance, nothing. I guess you just had to know that it was there. Otherwise, you would be none the wiser. I should not have gone out there. I did not really have the time to mess around, and I'm pretty sure my bosses would not be happy if they found out either. But I had to see it. And I did it on my own time anyway, so it's not like they could really complain. I drove down a service road, parked, and then walked about a quarter mile past some brush. The GPS guided me the whole way. Just dry, cracked dirt and scrub. And then I saw it. The thing he was observing and taking notes of. A circle. It was perfectly round and about 8 feet across in total. I walked up to it to peer inside. The dirt inside was pure black, blacker than tar. There was no texture and no shadows. It was like someone had photoshopped a hole into reality. Looked and especially felt really off. Like I could feel bad energy radiating from it. There was no smell and no heat coming off of it. I picked up a small stone from nearby off the ground and tossed it in. It made no sound. I thought maybe my aim was just bad, so I picked up another and dropped it directly over it. Naturally, I could not see shit. But again, no sound. That is not normal. I waved my hand over the edge. There was no updraft, no heat or cold, just absence. It did not even feel like it had depth. It felt like it was not there at all, like it was just a big hole in the world. As much as I wanted to stick around some more and investigate the place, I just felt really uneasy. You know that thing people get when they're on the edge of something, and you get that little intrusive thought in your head. I think they call it call of the void or some cringe shit like that. But it's like, in your head, saying to jump, and obviously you don't listen, because you're not an idiot. I felt this, but amplified, like really, really loud, almost like I could actually hear it, right there in person. I had some old rope in my truck. I'm sure you'll say, how convenient, but it was from my side hustle. Basically, I decided to get the rope and tie something to it and see if I could feel it hit something down there, or maybe just figure out how far down it went. I had about 400 feet of rope, don't ask why. I didn't really have much with me to attach it to, so I just used my old toolbox. I mean, I didn't really have anything else. A rock would be too small and could just fall. Anyway, so I lowered it down, and I am not kidding when I say I got to the end of all 400 feet and did not feel a thing. No kind of vibration or motion or any kind of sound. Sometimes, they dig wells super deep at like 1,000 feet, so I decided it must be that. Nothing to do except pull it back up. Once I did, my face went white. I did not know how to react when I pulled the toolbox back up to the top and saw that there was only half of it left. Literally split in half. All the tools gone, fallen out I assume. Like I said, I felt and heard nothing, so how the fuck did this happen? I left immediately. Back at the office, I filed the inspection report but left out the garage and the hole. I just listed the property as abandoned, structurally sound, and in need of debris cleanup. 2 weeks later, I got a call. Not from the bank. From a man claiming to be from the Department of the Interior. Said he had some follow-ups about a property I had inspected. Would not say which agency he was actually with. Asked if I had removed or taken any documents or photographs. I said no, which wasn't a lie technically. I left everything where I found it. He thanked me and hung up. That was the last I heard about that. Never had the time to look into it further. I have a few that happened to family members of mine. I have never experienced anything myself. This happened to my grandmother while in college in the 1940s. In dorm room with close roommate. Just relaxing at night, cooling off from the day's classes. Suddenly hear a scraping noise coming from the hallway. Grandma and her roommate shit themselves. Shut the door and huddle up. Listen closer. Sounds like someone forcefully scratching the walls. They sit there motionless for what seemed like hours. All the while, the scraping gets closer. Eventually, it stops, and they tentatively go to bed. In the morning, they learn that a friend of theirs had fallen and gotten severely hurt in the hallway. She had tried to make a noise and make her way to the nearest door to get help, but never made it. The girl died, and my grandmother felt so awed up about being afraid that she never asked how the girl got hurt. She used to use it as a fable, telling me it pays to face off your fears. This one happened to my mom. It's a bit weird, but I will write it just as she described it. In her bedroom with her cousin. She lived nearby, but was staying the night so they could hang out longer. As they are sitting around having fun, the overhead light begins to act strangely. It starts to flicker frantically, which freaks them out, but then it gets worse. The light starts to glow a deep red, and a pitch-black curtain begins to make its way across the ceiling and then down the walls. They go into a panic. Rush for the door to get my grandpa. The door has no handle all of a sudden. They begin to claw and beat at the door. They are screaming at the top of their lungs. Before the blackness reaches them, my grandpa busts in. All at once, things go back to normal. My grandpa comforts them, but is left confused for a while until they come to their senses. My brothers and I used to poke fun at my mom over the story, calling it the evil lamp. She and her cousin still swear by it though, as the most evil thing they've ever felt. Last one for now, another from my mom. Lived on a farm in rural Oregon. Houses on a hill with fields and then a thick forest at the top. Clear view all the way up from the kitchen window. Forest can't really be penetrated due to blackberries. Around the age of 7, she is playing near the tree line, digging in the dirt. Someone walks up to her. It is a girl in a red dress. Everything seems normal. They become good friends. Play every day. But when it's time to head inside at night, the girl just stays near the tree line as my mom heads inside. Stays there no matter how long my mom watches from the house. Eventually, my mom feels sorry for her and asks if her friend can come inside. They act confused, but eventually say yes. Mom goes to tell friend, but she is nowhere to be found. Never sees her again. She asked my grandparents about it when she was much older. They did not know who she was talking about at first, but then remembered. They had said yes, assuming it was an imaginary friend. During that time, they had seen my mom play by herself by the tree line every day, and never saw another girl, especially not in a red dress. Needless to say, this spooked the whole family. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. Be a guy from Texas. Decide to take a trip to New Orleans. Trip is not important, it is the drive back that matters. So, I am heading home, maybe 20 minutes outside Lafayette. Suddenly feel the onset of an anxiety attack coming on. Has not happened in a while, but last time was when I was driving and that shit was bad news. So I pull off the interstate. For some reason, I don't stop. Keep driving. Feeling not fully in control of my actions. Heading farther and farther away from the interstate. Moving into a rural area via this little road. Anxiety never kicks in, but now I am wondering what the fuck I'm doing, lol. Pull to a stop. These kids are playing in a small field on my left. Huge field over to my right. I glance over at the big field. There is a black thing walking around out there. Looks like a person ambling around, but wire thin and tall. Surprised to see this shit in broad daylight. Keep staring at it. It's actually really hard to see. I can just barely make it out as it moves around. It gets harder and harder to see until eventually it is just gone. Totally bewildered. Look back over at the kids. They are totally frozen in place. They are all looking bug-eyed at the field. I yell out, "Did y'all see that?" They look at me and nod. Alright, see y'all later. Looking at that man was like looking at a daddy longlegs from far away. Just thin and wiry, barely perceptible. I wonder if the only reason I saw it was because I was panicking, but I don't know. The kids saw it too. Another one. Used to work with an events company. One event took us to downtown Houston. Small party at the Houston Library. Anyone that's worked in this sort of job knows you often work split shifts. You set up before the event starts. Go home to get some sleep while it is going on. Then come back and work overnight to tear it down. Since this one was so small, it was just me and a handful of guys. One of them goes off by himself to take down the lights. Let's call him George. George is on a big ladder by an upstairs window, pulling lights. Pick related. George is by one of those arch windows on the left-hand side. I am walking by, and George stops me. Tells me he hears music inside the building. I listen, and sure enough, I can hear a violin. Figured maybe someone left a radio on. Tell George to just ignore it. It is not our job. But George tells me it is moving. Not sure what he means. George says he's been hearing the music move past him, back and forth. I listen closely. The fucker is right. The sound of the violin is traveling from one window to the next, and then back. Fucking ghost music. George is Hispanic and incredibly superstitious, so I tell him to hurry up before El Diablo gets him. Never seen him work so fast, Kek. By the time we're done tearing down, everyone is aware of the ghost violinist. We stand there for a while, staring up at the windows, listening to the music in the dark. Beautiful piece. Still wonder what it is to this day. Find out later, the old groundskeeper used to play violin. He and his dog are said to haunt the building. Rest in peace, old-timer. You were one hell of a fiddler. Let's tell the story about the field Wraith now. Back in the day, I used to walk around my hometown and go scavenging. The big fields next to the long forest following the river always had cool treasure. Knives, bones, skulls, big chunks of scrap metal that could either be scrapped or forged. One day of scavenging, I had a couple of buddies with me. We stayed out past dusk, and we were junk hunting until it was dark. Now, this big-ass field runs parallel to a very desolate and vacant road, so it has those big tall coppery-colored streetlights. Those lights were bright enough to dimly illuminate about half the width of this field. The field is about 2 football fields wide, and it was dimly lit about halfway. We were walking on the sidewalk, the field on our right. Suddenly, my eyes catch movement in the fields. What is that? Me and all 3 of my friends saw this thing fucking hauling ass over the tips of the grass. It was a black hooded figure, arms, shoulders, and a head, just silently speeding across the moor. No legs, just like the picture attached. We stopped and stared at it. It traveled another 50 yards, then suddenly vanished into thin air. Field Wraith out of 10. A few murders have happened in that neck of the woods, too. When I was 9, a bunch of us from the neighborhood, loud, rowdy kids, spent our days climbing for a pair of abandoned, rotting 2-story barracks near an old dirt road. People had actually lived there in my memory. I even remember one woman from there who used to drink with my grandmother. Then, out of nowhere, they were all given apartments, and the barracks stood empty for the next 3 years. Naturally, everything you'd expect from an abandoned place was there. Homeless people coming and going, garbage everywhere, puddles of God knows what in every corner. There were still scraps of furniture and old wallpaper, but it was all decaying fast. One of the barracks had something unusual. A single intact door on the second floor, blocking off an apartment. It was old but sturdy, completely sealed shut, and being the reckless kids we were, we decided to turn the place next door into our headquarters. We dragged in random junk, cleaned up a bit, even designated a bathroom, which, in hindsight, was disgusting. 2 unlucky kids were forced to mop the floors. To keep out squatters, we nailed boards across the entrance, leaving just enough space for us to squeeze through. That is when the noises started. At first, we brushed them off as the wind, but then someone pointed out that the windows in that apartment were intact, and wind does not make scratching sounds, like nails dragging across wooden floors. We were kids. Fear was not in our vocabulary, curiosity was. So, every time we heard those noises, we would press our ears to the wall, trying to figure out what was inside. We even tried to break down the door, not that we had the strength. Someone climbed a tree to peek through the windows, but thick, heavy red curtains blocked the view. One of us had a bright idea. We taped the door shut to see if it was ever opened. For 3 weeks, the tape stayed untouched, until some idiot set it on fire. Meanwhile, the noises got worse. The shuffling became more frequent. Sometimes, we heard wheezing. Once, we even heard a raspy old cough, like some frail old woman clearing her throat. We never found out what was behind that door, but none of us forgot the sounds. Years later, I ended up working at the hotel that now stands where those barracks used to be. Hotel Fishery, Kamchatka, Elizava. I worked as a waiter and sometimes stayed the night when it wasn't worth going home between shifts. One night, the place was empty except for me and the administrator. Guests were rare back then. I was in my room, asleep on a soft bed, when I woke up suddenly for no reason. Then I heard it. That same sound, the shuffling, the wheezing, the quiet scraping noise from behind the wall, right where the headboard of my bed was. I broke out in a cold sweat and ran downstairs to the administrator. I asked if anyone else had checked in. She said no. Grabbing her by the elbow, I made her come with me to check the room next to mine. It was empty, spotless. I quit that job a long time ago, but even now, I avoid walking past that place. Summer 2013. Decide that it's time to kill coyotes for that sweet, sweet fur. Grab my bare bones basic AR-15 I got for cheap. I like the way AK slings effects, so I ghettoed a sling point to put on the barrel. Sling it on my right side around my neck, messenger bag style. Take my ATV up to a cabin on the mountain. Take the key to my ATV. Start looking around. I have been throwing squirrel and rabbit guts into the woods and shit like that to bring predators around. Check my bait, it's all gone. Keep getting a strange feeling. Guy who lives on the mountain just down the road leaves in his car, just as I decide I should look around in the woods. Every time I step, I keep thinking I hear another footstep shuffling through the grass and brush. See a stick figure shape looking thing in the distance, a little bit downhill from me. Wave directly at it. It slips behind a tree. Okay, goodbye. Walk back up to the cabin. Decide to sit around and drink for a while. Start hearing coyote yelps and shit in the distance. Get my gat ready to blast a couple fools. Sit with the lights off on the porch and nothing comes by. Then the yelping turns into a distant, "Help me." Look over to the neighbor's house and the lights are off. It does not click that he left. Get up and listen. "Help me. Help me." Fuck. He broke his legs and is stuck in a woods with coyotes or some shit. Get close enough to the woods to tell it's on an ATV trail. Decide to take my ATV and AR. Driving towards the person saying help me, when I come to a U-shaped dip in the path. Don't hit my brakes, just coast it down. I hear something right in front of me on the trail scream help me, and I freak my shit and try to turn. Flip my ATV and black out for a minute. Wake up under the ATV with it pinned on top of me. Sit still and wait for my eyes to adjust. Start feeling around. Find that my left leg is pinned under the ATV. Try pushing it, but I can't get it off. It's like it got 100 pounds heavier in a couple of seconds. The sling around my neck tells me I still have a rifle. Drag it to me. Realize my arm is bleeding in the meantime. Check over the gun. The handguard is fucked and the stock is cracked, but it appears to still function. I've got 30 rounds to keep me safe until the night is over or someone finds me. Sit and listen closely to the sounds of the forest before I hear something shuffling in the grass that silences everything. It is dead quiet. I don't think I've ever felt more fear than I have at this moment. I hear it shuffling around. Help me again and again. Don't know if I should respond or sit in silence. Its shuffling gets closer. Something appears over the ATV, just like if you had fallen at a bar and the bartender looked at you funny. It looked like it was 9 feet tall. Frozen solid, twiddle my fingers and reach for my gat. Just bring it into my shoulder and sit there, pointed at whatever the fuck it is. Don't want to look directly at it because fuck that. Help me. I hear it climbing over the ATV. Looking away still, but something grabs my face. Fuck, 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 fuck. Mind is blank. Looking for triggerfinger.exe. Not found. Would you like to delete the shortcut? It slowly moves my head over. I am face to face with this thing, and it is looking me in the eyes. It looked like how almost everyone else describes them. Golem that had done crack and carved up its face with sunken cheeks and deep eyes. To this day, I have never smelled anything quite as bad as the breath from that thing. Feel the flash hider on my AR bump into something. Remember, I had it aimed at the thing. Brain reboots. Scream as loud as I can. It screams back. Start yanking, not pulling or squeezing the trigger as fast as I can. Gun is going off. My ears are starting to ring. It grabs my hair and starts slamming my head into the ground as fast as it can. Still pulling the trigger as fast as I fucking can. It rips the fucking gun from my hand and starts beating me with it. It is still screaming as loud as it fucking can while beating me over the head with my own gun. Lights start flickering through the woods. About to black out when I hear something louder than the screaming. I swear, I saw the thing's head fly open. It drops my gun, screams like a child that's just been shoved in an oven, and runs for it. Drops my gun 10 feet from my head. Light is getting closer. Don't know if I'm dying or being saved. Anon, hold on. Something is tugging my arm. Look over. It's the guy who lived down the road. He's got a huge revolver. We are talking a Magnum Research BFR here. Blackout. Wake up in a hospital. Had a fuck ton of stitches in my head. When I get out, I ask my neighbor what he saw that night. Replies with, a bear. We get them often up here. Not entirely convinced that I was nearly beaten to death with my own gun by a bear. True story. Be me, like 10 or 11. Be with like 4 friends, riding bikes at like 11 PM, cause that's what we do. Down the street from my house lived this old lady. Rarely saw her leave the house, but when she did, her hair was fucked, and she muttered to herself. Everyone thinks she's creepy as fuck. Upper floor, top right window, sealed that deal. She kept a crazy-eyed antique doll in her window that always looked like it was looking down at the street at us. Be riding past there, stop in front of the house. I find a tennis ball, reason we stop. But then we just kinda sat there, looking at the doll. I shit you not, as soon as we are all looking at it, the fucker slowly tips over forward and hits head against glass, now looking directly down on us. Holy shit, what the fuck reflexes. Throw ball as hard as I can at the window. Window breaks in. Tennis ball goes in. Doll leans back, as if it's going to fall into the house. My face when that creepy fucker slowly leans forward and falls out the window into the bushes. Get the fuck out. Fast forward like half a year later. Be with neighbor girl who was with me the night of the creep doll, telling me how she keeps waking up to noises in her backyard. We joke and say it's the old Ken doll we buried there as a joke. Next day, she tells me how her father found a creepy ass cracked face porcelain doll next to a hole with a Ken doll in it. Holy shit, me and that girl flipped out for weeks. Got all friends to come over and she made her dad burn the doll with gas. The only thing left after that was the burnt ass glass eyes. Fast forward like a month. Me and neighbor girl plan to sneak out around 1 a.m. Plan initiates. I sneak out front door, look down. There is a fucking tennis ball sitting dead center on my porch. Move soon after. Have not talked to neighbor girl.